What an intro. Hey, I'm Kent. Welcome to the tutorial. I'm from the Drop Bears meetup where we're making our own Australian horror movie. You can find me at Meetup or at Patreon/dropbears. Today we're looking at limbs and how to repaint them and what the best blood paint to use is. So you can see on the screen a few pictures of items that I've bought or limbs. So they're mainly from eBay or the costume shop, pretty cheap, all the way from about $4 up to about $12, I think the most expensive one was. But when they do come, they're pretty low quality. So you see the paints on some of the photos, the blood paint is just a red paint, and the cream color is usually very red and just doesn't look very good. So what we opted to do for the movie was just give them a coat of paint and use a nice blood paint to put over the top. So all we needed was some acrylic paint, just a cream color, a red color, and actually a white color. You can also use Citidel paints, which is for Warhammer, but there's the blood paint there that you do want to get. I've tried a few others, but Blood for the Blood God for Citidel, that is the blood paint. So you can just, if you want to cover the whole fingers like I've done here, looks pretty good. And with the blood paint, you can really bunch it up. You can just sort of swipe it over. It looks pretty good. But you can see here, all I've done is I've just gone over the red with a red, the bone with a white, and the cream color, what I've done there is I've used hardly any paint on the brush and just sort of rubbed it or dry brushed it over the top, so that the skin color that it came with is still sort of there, and the white paint or cream paint is just coming over the top of it to sort of meld it all together, and that really looked quite good just doing that. You can go further and then do your own wash over the top of that, and I'll show you what that looks like. So basically you just get a tiny bit of transparent cream or just a basic acrylic cream paint, and just go over the top of your limb. So you can see here the finger. Don't worry about the blood paint that they've painted on. Just go over the whole thing. Just a quick dry brush, sort of rub it in. You don't want to put too much paint on, so it's still got a bit of transparency. And you don't even need to worry about going over other parts, because we're just going to repaint over the top of it anyway. And so it's still got the color that it originally came with, but now it's just got a bit more cream to it, lose some of that red. So here's just one of the washes. Now a wash is a Citidel paint, and you use a wash brush, and it's sort of like an ink in it. You just dab it in, get lots on a really loose brush, and put it all over the areas that you've painted, and see how it just falls into all the cracks and just sort of highlights the cracks with a really dark color. And if you put too much on your brush, you can just soak it all up back into the brush, so you sort of just move it around. Alright, and so I've done that bone, and you can really see the difference it makes. Just doing a flat white looks pretty bad, but as soon as you put that wash on, wow, it just pops straight away. So it's looking great. And that's a yellow type wash that I used from Citidel. If you go back and have a look at the picture, you'll see what I used. And there's another wash there on the right hand side, that's Nurgles oil, that's a black wash. So I used yellow for the bone and black for the red. And so I'm now putting that into all the cracks of the bloody red areas, and again it's just getting into all the cracks, all the divots, and just highlighting that area. And of course it just makes a lot of difference straight away. And so that's sort of finished after I've done my shade. I end up putting a bit more red into all the areas and start making bite marks. And there it is there, the finished wash. So you can see the difference straight away that it makes, and how much of a difference it really does make. So that's before without the wash, and then that's after with the wash. And you can see how I've now made bite marks with the grooves that were already there. Now what you can also do is get a bright paint or a dry brush paint and just sort of dab it over the tops and highlight the tips, the sort of the high up areas with a lighter red, and that just sort of brings it, gives it a bit more texture, makes it a bit more 3D. And if you can see here, I also used one of the divots that was already there and I made it look like a bone, and that was just with white paint and then the yellow wash. So the blood paint, this is the most important part, is Blood for the Blood Gods by Citidel. Look it up, that is the blood paint. And you can see here that you can do a lot with this paint. I mean, it just dries and moves exactly like blood. You can swipe it, you can build it up really highly, and it's a thick paint with a lot of gloss, and then you can just lightly put it over areas, so a lot what you can do. And so you can see I'm sort of swiping it up the fingers really lightly, and then putting big thick blobs where the finger's gone missing. So it actually looks like a finger's been bitten off now. It's now got the cream paint over the top, the wash over the top of the red areas and the bone, and then the blood paint put on it. And we're just now going to keep adding blood paint to this area that still doesn't have it, and see how you can really build it up on some areas. You can build it up wherever you want. You can also see with the bone that I did a bit of a dry brush because it was just a bit yellow and it's supposed to look fresh for our movie, like it's just been bitten off. So I just did a dry brush white over the top of that yellow wash. So it's still got those dark areas, but then it's back to its original white color rather than as yellow as it actually was. Now another good idea, if you want to add puss, which is something that we're not doing, but Citadel bring out another paint called Nurgles Rot. Put the blood paint on first and then add that and you'll have yourself a puss. It's just as good as the blood paint, looks brilliant. And that's it drying, that's the finished look. And here's some close-up photos. So you can really tell the difference between what it looked like before and now what it looks like after, yeah, just some simple paints and not much work. You might find that they do get sticky after you've put up all the coats or recoated it. So I just give it like a matte finish with the spray. It doesn't make it non-sticky, but it does reduce the stickiness. And it depends on the limb if it's going to do that. The ones that are softer seem to be more sticky. The harder limbs or the plastic limbs definitely not as sticky. So I'm just spraying one side and then I'll wait for that to dry, flip it over and dry the other side. So that's the Nurgles Rot Technical if you want to do puss. That layer paint, that's a transparent paint, so that you could also use that for a high quality cream rather than the cheap acrylic I used. So this foot, not much you could do with it because it doesn't really have divots, but that's just a cream paint with the yellow wash. We'll probably put a sock on this and put it in a boot, but the best part is the top part, is just adding the blood paint, going over the bone, which does have a wash, but then we put blood paint over the top of that as well. And here's the fingers that we bought for $4. So pretty crappy looking, a lot of bone, just cheap red blood paint. And now I've gone over it with just the acrylic paints, not worrying about those streaks of awful red going down the fingers. And then I actually got some molding paste and just built up around the areas, because it was just this big knob of bloody stuff at the top, so I thought I'd just make that a bit more smoother. So that's what it looks like after the wash. So there's a yellow wash and then a black wash for the red, and then that's the final product. I just put nail polish on the nails because they're female fingers. That's also got a wash, so that's why it's more darker in color, while these are a bit more white. That's an arm that we did, so we just went over the red lines that were there with a blood paint, and so that looks pretty good. That one was also sticky, so we just sprayed it with the matte spray. But you can really tell the difference, and it does look quite white, but on camera looks fine. Thanks for listening to my video. My cat's meowing at me. But we've got other videos coming up, so we're going to be looking at making some intestines. I'll show you how we turned a pair of slippers into drop bear feet, making claws and everything for it. We're also making claws for a gorilla gloves, so it's more like a drop bear. And if you live in Brisbane, feel free to join up. We're at Meetup. We're making a Drop Bears movie. Going to be filming end of 2018. You can support us on Patreon at /dropbears. Thanks for listening. See you next time.